Georgia recruiting has been a bit of a roller coaster ride these past couple weeks. Early on, they had a top 5 class, but then the flip of Justice Terry to USC, UGA slid outside the top 10. But don't worry, there's still plenty of time left for the Dogs to get things back on track. We're going to talk about it in this video, but first, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We love talking Dogs recruiting. We're going to do it all offseason long, so jump on board and hit subscribe for me, please. All right, I got 2 GOATs with me today, Chad Simmons and Steve Wiltfong, and let's start with the drama, right? Justice Terry flipped to USC over a week ago, and USC also coming to Georgia's backyard and lands edge Isaiah Gibson as well. I want to ask you guys, do you think that the Dogs will have a shot to double back on either of these guys, Justice Terry or Isaiah Gibson?
Well, if you're a Georgia fan, you're like, we've seen this movie before. Michael Williams, Christian Miller, let them commit to USC. We will flip them back later. And they did. The difference this time, and while I say this, certainly still not ruling out Georgia flipping them back by the time it's all said and done. Wouldn't be surprised if they're at G-Day, Chad. But I'll say this, USC's got Eric Henderson right now. He is an electric recruiter. The NFL pedigree, bringing Aaron Donald to the USC practice when all those Georgia boys were out there was a nice touch. Him coming out to the Peach State and walking the halls, building relationships with everybody. It's authentic. Is the track record winning the Super Bowl with the Rams. USC, the investment, telling Justice Terry from small-town Manchester, Georgia, come out and get the big lights of Los Angeles during your college career, the NIL opportunities, the exposure. Lincoln Riley's always heavily involved. This one might be a little bit tougher for Georgia, but it still could also be a movie that we've seen before.
Yeah, like you said, Lincoln was involved. This was a Henny deal. I mean, Henny went to Manchester early when he got on the road. They hit it off quickly, went out there, obviously had a great time. And his resume, like you said, resume came down to it, and he loved the atmosphere in L.A. His parents were there. It wasn't just him by himself. He had mom, he had dad. They were all kind of bought in. But with that said, he'll be back in Athens multiple times between now and the signing period in December. Georgia, there's already been communication. The day he flipped, they're talking with Trey Scott and Kirby Smart. He'll be back soon. Isaiah Gibson, same. Both guys are going to take their OVs. They're going to get back to different schools. Going into the visit to USC for Isaiah Gibson, he wasn't even really talking USC in that top group of schools. It was Oregon, it was Clemson, it was Georgia. Went out there, fell in love, committed, but Georgia will be back involved. And they already are with both these kids.
Speaking of Isaiah Gibson, if you're Georgia, you're like, you're thinking it's harder to flip someone from Dabo Swinney in Clemson or Brent Venables in Oklahoma for pretty much the same reason. So if he's off the board to somebody, you're like, all right, USC, we can stem this tide here.
Take visits.
And get to work here. And this is just the beginning of that process. But if you're USC, you feel good about it too. You got them in the fold. They're going to come back for their official visits in June. They'll get back, I'm sure, for a game during the fall as well. And so if USC can keep putting together, can show improvement under this new defensive staff this fall, that might be tough to pull them out of there.
Yeah. All right. Well, Justice Terry, the number 2 ranked defensive lineman in America, they still got a shot with him. The number 1 defensive lineman in America, Elijah Griffin, was trending early to UGA and heavily to UGA, but then he takes that visit to USC, had a lot of great things to say about the Trojans. He was one of the few prospects on campus that did not commit to USC over the weekend. But should Georgia be concerned about Elijah Griffin now?
Yeah, I don't even know if Kirby Smart gets concerned about anything that happens in recruiting in April. He knows it's the long game. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Comes down to relationships, player development, the proof's in the pudding with Trey Scott, Kirby Smart, under the defense of Glenn Schumann. They've got not just Elijah Griffin, I think, feeling good about Georgia, but they got the mom, who's in a very tight-knit family. The grandma is very important to him. She's been there as well. I just think it's going to be still Georgia. Yes, USC got him on campus. He had a great time. He's going to go back for an official, but I still like where Georgia sits for Elijah Griffin.
Georgia also trying hard to land Darren Akinnagbon from New Jersey. He's one of the top targets on their board. Georgia most definitely on the short list for him. And then Jared Smith. That's one of their favorite targets at the position there on the edge of their defense. South Carolina is all in on him. Obviously, Tennessee, Florida State, some other contenders, Auburn for Jared Smith. But Georgia would love to add Darren, Jared, Elijah, and then get that spatula out and flip Isaiah and Justice Terry.
Probably keep going like Zayden Walker, other guys in Georgia. They want to definitely keep at home in the end.
All right. We can't talk Georgia recruiting without talking the quarterback position. Now, there's a couple names to know, and I'm going to get these guys' opinion on how this all could shake out. But the main players here are Julian Lewis, the 5-star quarterback, Matt Zollers, 4-star, and Ryan Montgomery, a 4-star out of Pennsylvania. So, guys, how do you see this Georgia quarterback board working itself out?
Well, they're in fantastic position for these guys. For Matt Zollers, I think that Missouri and Georgia are the programs that are positioned the best. He was back at Missouri earlier this spring. I think that's been kind of a tone setter. He wants to get back to Georgia, taking a practice, get around the players on the team more. That's probably the final element for him. His first visit was a lot of off-field stuff and hanging out with the staff. So we'll see how that goes. Chad had the news that he's announcing on April 4th, so we'll know what he's doing soon. Julian Lewis was back at USC at the end of March, also visited Georgia, Colorado, Alabama, and Auburn. Longtime commit to USC, but Georgia, there's always been some buzz that Georgia is the biggest threat to flip him. We'll see if that's fluid or not, but they're certainly in the middle of it there. And then Ryan Montgomery, he's visited multiple times, already has his official visit locked in to return. So while South Carolina and Florida are probably the programs that we would project are in better position right now, if Matt Zollers goes to Missouri and something goes sideways with Georgia's position, if they get some clarity on that earlier, or maybe even if Matt Zollers just goes to Missouri and Georgia wants to take 2 quarterbacks, they could really turn it up for Ryan Montgomery. And I think he's very excited about the potential at Georgia as well, because recruiting, it's not always just about who's recruiting you first and who's been on you the longest or the hardest, but when you get that ticket to the ride, and if that ride's right for you, and I think the connection and the bond that they've built with Mike Bobo and Coach Van Gorder and company over there at Georgia, they're very comfortable and love the potential opportunity in Athens as well.
Yeah, I think we'll know a lot more about Georgia's situation at quarterback before Montgomery ever gets back to Athens. Obviously, it starts with Zollers this week, April 4th, making the decision. Like you said, Steve, Missouri strong in this, Pitt, Penn State, then Georgia. At Bama, on Monday as well, April 1st, they're trying to maybe make a late push there as well. But right now, Missouri, Georgia, kind of, according to Steve, setting the pace there. And then I think we'll know there, obviously, this week, what happens there. Then you go Juju. I think he goes to May 31st, OV to Georgia. I think that's kind of Georgia wants to kind of, get some type of answer. Where are we at that point? Either do you want to come here and flip from USC? Do you want to stay at USC? Are we behind Auburn? Are we behind Alabama? Where some more clarity coming out of that. Then I think if you make it to Ryan Montgomery, if he gets on campus, I think he becomes a pretty big target for Georgia late in June.
All right, lots of recruiting left for the Dawgs, but Georgia fans, talk to me. Who do you think the Dawgs are going to sign at quarterback? Are you concerned about Elijah Griffin? Do you think UGA is going to flip Justice Terry in the end? Let me know, comment section below. Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed that, go check out the hundreds of videos that we have on this channel, and also do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel.